Last night, UFC 265 went down where Derrick Lewis took on Cyril Gane in the main event. And we're going to cover the results here. We're going to cover the results of not only the main event, but also the co-main event. Jose Aldo versus Pedro Munoz. Jose Aldo. Those are the two main fights that I was super excited for last night. So we're going to cover the results of those as well as just the results of the rest of the main card. We're not going to really dive deep into those, but this is just a quick recap of UFC 265. But before we get started, where are our manners? Make sure you hit the thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, and the notification bell. Don't be a baby back bagel biting beta male, because you know what time it is. It's full time MMA. That's right. UFC 265 went down last night, and we're going to start at the main event and work our way down real quick. UFC 265. Let me make sure I got this on cue for whenever we go to the rest of the results. So Cyril Gane versus Derrick Lewis, fighting in an interim title fight to see who takes on Francis Ngannou next. Now this is a fight I picked Cyril Gane going into. In the Discord, I said I would probably bet a pretty decent amount of money on Gane because he is a very well-rounded fighter, and what we were giving Derrick Lewis is a puncher's chance. Cyril Gane is a former striking champion, Muay Thai champion before he started his UFC journey. He was 9-0 going into the fight, so he didn't have a lot of actual MMA experience. But for this matchup specifically, for the matchup with Derrick Lewis, I mean, you're going to need, if you have some high-level striking, then it's going to probably be the worst matchup for Derrick Lewis. I mean, of course, if you take him down, it's hard for him to get up, but Derrick Lewis likes to stand on the feet. He's not looking to take you down. So if you can just pick Derrick Lewis apart on the feet like we saw Gane do, just starting with the leg kicks, just picking him apart, it's going to be a very tough night for Derrick Lewis. The thing about Derrick Lewis is, even in his tough nights, he's always got that comeback KO, Black Beast power, where he could be losing every single round up into the fifth or the third round, and he could land that knockout punch. Derrick Lewis brings that power late into the fight, and so he's always dangerous. Derrick Lewis stays dangerous. And so that is why, even though it might be a bad matchup for Derrick Lewis, you can never count him out. So last night, Cyril Gane, he got the third round stoppage, and Dan Mergliotta gave Derrick Lewis every chance to survive, every chance to come back, but he was just outmatched and outclassed last night. So therefore, Cyril Gane came out the interim heavyweight champion. Now we are going to have Cyril Gane taking on Francis Ngannou. That's right, Ngannou versus Gane, Francis versus France. That's got a ring to it, don't it? That's what's going down. Ngannou versus Gane, Francis versus France. They will be scrapping. I don't know where it's going down. I think Francis is somewhere shooting a movie or something right now, or he was, why he couldn't make this fight. He's busy being a big superstar, but this is going to be a huge fight. This fight, Gane versus Ngannou, is going to be bigger than Black Beast versus Predator, which is Derrick Lewis versus Ngannou, could have ever been. Nobody was really super excited to see that fight. We've seen Derrick Lewis versus Francis Ngannou, and the fight was a shit show. It was extremely boring, and just if we were going to book the second fight, we would even have to go back and watch that fight just to see how it played out. And who wants to go watch that fight? So I'm actually glad Gane won. It gives us a fresh fight. It's a huge fight. Him and Francis Ngannou are former teammates. He's France's first champion. We got the African champion. France versus Africa. Francis versus France. Gane versus Ngannou. This thing, a fresh matchup. Former teammates. Fucking devastating striker versus devastating striker. This fight right here is, in my opinion, much better than Derrick Lewis versus Ngannou 2 would have been. And like Dana White said, even Vince McMahon couldn't have wrote a script this good. Yo, this is a great fight coming up, and I'm much more excited. So let's go on to the co-main event of Jose Aldo taking on Pedro Munoz. That fight right there, Jose Aldo looked amazing, and I am so glad, I'm so thankful Jose Aldo looked this good in this fight, because when TJ Dillashaw came back and took on Corey Sandhagen in a fight that a lot of people think TJ lost, I still wanted to see TJ versus Aldo. This is a fight two former dominant champions in their respective divisions. Could have been a super fight in the past. Could have been champ versus champ in the past. Both of these guys, TJ Dillashaw, Jose Aldo, are former champions of bantamweight and featherweight. Jose Aldo, the former featherweight kingpin that was dethroned by Conor McGregor and never got his rematch. He has since then been working. He's still only like 32, 33 years old, by the way. Despite his long, dominant reign, Jose Aldo is still a young, youthful fighter. He's still got a lot of time, so he made that weight cut, went down a one weight class, and now we get to see him versus a lot of the guys we might have never thought we would see. I mean, we've heard about Jose Aldo potentially going up to 155, but he actually made the move down to 135, where there's guys like TJ Dillashaw, Dominic Cruz, of course, the champion, Peter Yan. You got, Aljamain Sterling. You got Peter Yan. You've got all these other guys that are really big fights for Aldo that we might have not ever get to see. Specifically, T.J. Dillashaw and Dominic Cruz. Those are two super fights, in my opinion, just as a longtime MMA fan, that I would have to mark out for. You give me T.J. Dillashaw versus Jose Aldo, that's what I want to see. But let's first quickly talk about the fight. Pedro Munoz, it would have been a huge win for him. It could have potentially put him in that. There's really a log jam at bantamweight right now, so it would have been hard for Pedro Munoz to really get this title fight or a title fight or anything close to a title fight, because we've got Yan versus Sterling happening. We've got TJ Dillashaw back. We've got just other guys like Corey Sandhagen, of course, who, even if Corey Sandhagen fought a guy like Jose Aldo, they go right back in the mix. So it would have been hard for Pedro Munoz to break into that bantamweight logjam with Aljamain being formerly recently injured. So even if Peter Yan wins, you might have to have a trilogy fight. Then TJ Dillashaw, former champion, just came back and got a win, so he's automatically jumped in the line for a title fight. Now you got Jose Aldo, though. That would be a sick number one contender fight. Jose Aldo versus TJ Dillashaw. Winner fights the winner of Peter and Aljo. Because I really think if Peter wins, then they're gonna not give Aljo his immediate rematch. He's not one of those guys with the power and the clout that's got the Dana White privilege. Aljamain Sterling, they're gonna be like, sorry, everyone thought you lost the first fight anyway. You lost the second fight. We're giving the shot to Aldo or Dillashaw. I could easily see Aljamain Sterling getting ripped off by the UFC, 100%. So either way, I'm super excited to see Aldo versus Dillashaw. That's what last night meant for me. That's what that dominant, unanimous decision meant for me from Jose Aldo in the co-main event. It meant Dillashaw versus Aldo. That's all I want to see. I want to see it fucking bad. That fight is going to be sick, especially with Aldo looking good, TJ not looking so good. This might be a bad fight for TJ, the resident former bantamweight champion. He might have a tough matchup on his hands with Jose Aldo. Either way, I can't wait. Now, the rest of the fights on the pay-per-view, I was not super excited about. We had Vicente Luque versus Michael Chiesa. That's a good fight just because I like Vicente Luque. Not the biggest fan of Michael Chiesa. It was good to see Vicente Luque submit Michael Chiesa because that's Michael Chiesa's bread and butter, is his jiu-jitsu. So by choking out Michael Chiesa, you're kind of beating him at his own game and letting him know he doesn't belong in the top 5 at all, not even close. So I like that. Get Michael Chiesa the fuck up out of there. And Vicente Luque called for a shot against Kamaru Usman, which, like I said in Discord yesterday, these guys are really fighting for a shot to lose to Usman because he's so good right now. He's just such a dominant force. It's going to take an elite caliber athlete on top of skill level to beat this guy. Vicente Luque is a really good fighter. Underrated, has been one of my favorite fighters since before he was on everyone's radar when he was still unranked, just fighting tough matchup after tough matchup. I rock with Vicente Luque, but Kamaru Usman is on another level right now, and I just see it hard to pick anybody to beat him. So Luque called for the shot. He might get the shot after Kobe. Who knows? Anything can happen. So good job for Vicente Luque. He's putting himself up there. He's calling for the title shot, and he might actually get one in the future. I could definitely see it by 2022. Tisha Torres versus Angela Hill. Tisha Torres beat the crap out of Angela Hill. It wasn't very competitive. Angela Hill pretty much got beat up throughout the fight. She landed a couple good shots, but Tisha Torres got the dub. WMMA filler. I wasn't super excited about that fight. Song Yadong versus Casey Kenny ended in a split decision. That's a fight. Song Yadong. I think Casey Kenny I think Song Yadong actually had the better. I picked him going into the fight, Song Yadong, but that split decision stuff. To me, my head always goes to politics, even though that's not the case. You never know what the judges are on, what the judges are thinking, what the judges are scoring, what the judges want to see that night, which judges are in the building. Is Adelaide Bird in the house? Are the judges blind that night? What's going on with the judges? So anytime you get a split decision, it's going to be somewhat controversial. Casey Kinney's a guy that I actually think has a lot of potential for the division. Song Yadong is coming up. He's on my radar. How far can Song Yadong take it? We will see. But hey, he looked good versus Casey Kinney. He got his hand raised, and these guys are going to be moving up close to the top 15 of the division. He's probably going to get a top 15 fight really soon if he's not already ranked. I don't think he is. But either way, Song Yadong's on the way up. This fight probably wouldn't have been on the pay-per-view if we didn't lose a title fight. Amanda Nunes versus Juliana Pena. Amanda Nunes' family tested positive for COVID, so she fell off the card a couple weeks ago. Either way, it was a good night of fights. I haven't watched it yet, but I heard Bobby Green versus Rafael Fiziev was the fight of the night and just insane. I gotta go back and watch that. That was UFC 265. It's set up Ngannou versus Gane, Francis versus France, teammate versus teammate, Africa versus France. This fight set up a whole lot of things. If you're the UFC, you're happy about. This fight was big business. If you're the UFC, you wanted Gane to win last night because it sets up all of those things, and it's not just a potential rematch of one of the worst fights in UFC history. Do you want all the things I just lined up? Africa versus France, Gane versus Ngannou, Francis versus France, teammate versus teammate, elite athletic specimen versus elite athletic specimen, or do you want a rematch of one of the potential worst fights in UFC history? Last night was good for the UFC. Aldo got a big dub. That's huge for the UFC because he's a former champion looking to make more super fights. If Aldo winning means Aldo versus Dillashaw, which is huge. Munoz winning, he's not a big name. So last night was good for the UFC, good for the fight fans, good for the heavyweight division. And yeah, man, it was a good night in fights in general. Next week there are no fights, but we will be back the week after. I'm going to be doing videos in between there, here and there, of course, spontaneously. So with that being said, it is what it is. Let the full-time family know what you think in the comments. What do you think about the fights last night? What do you think about the future matchups? Let me know in the comments. It is what it is. I'm out.